we go. Hello everyone, welcome back to Who's Views, and this is another in our Sound of Whosic series, isn't it, Paul?
It is indeed. Hello everyone.
Hi, yes, thank you for joining us. Nice to see you all. And yes, in this particular episode, Paul and I are slipping back to the summer of 1985. Do you know what? I remember that really well.
I remember as well. Obviously, it was a time of a hiatus, which sounds really painful now. But I was gutted at the time when Doctor Who was postponed or put on hiatus. But this was a lovely treat to bridge the gap.
Well, that's the whole point about this thing, isn't it, really? Because, of course, this was the summer of 1985. And we were all actually going to be... We were sort of getting over this sort of news, weren't we? That Doctor Who wasn't coming back as immediately as we thought. It was going to be a huge 18 months before it was coming back.
18 months was too long to wait.
Well, it was, yeah.
Oh, no, yes.
And then this thing came along, didn't it? So, you know, it was a bit... I think that's probably why it's ingrained in my memory, the whole thing about summer 1985. You know, the fact that, you know, we just come up the back of Revelation of the Daleks and this story comes along. And of course, yes, we are talking about Slipback, which was first broadcast on BBC Radio 4, the 25th of July to the 8th of August in 1985, and written by Eric Saywood. And as you can see, that was produced by Paul Spencer, who was a very big name on BBC Radio back then. He did a lot of the BBC radio dramas and documentaries and all that sort of stuff, so he did well. And of course, yes, there we go. That's what it's all about then. So, this was also quite a big deal, wasn't it, for them at the time? Because this was part of this massive, big sort of kids' summer spectacular. Do you remember?
Yeah, it was a pirate radio show or something like that, wasn't it? It was, and these were 10-minute episodes in between all the other things they were having on the radio, which sounded, it's a bit like Swap Shop when they used to have, they dropped the cartoons and Doctor Who was dropped like a mini episode, which was lovely. 10 minutes of exciting Doctor Who fun.
Yeah, 10 minutes that wasn't continuous as well. You had to listen to the whole blooming 3 hours of this thing. I remember not being that... Maybe it's because I was a teenager, but I wasn't that impressed at the time with this, because they did take that classic Saturday morning formula of live television and put it on the radio where you had a presenter. We've actually got this from a copy of the Radio Times from 1985 that I picked up. This was it here. And as you can see there, brand new series starting there. There's Pirate Radio 4 just there. And it goes on and on and on and on from 9 o'clock in the morning. It was a big thing for them. I don't think it was ever repeated, Paul.
Yeah, I don't think it was. I don't know if that was whether it wasn't very successful or not, or it just wasn't tried again. But like I say, it's like a radio version of Swap Shop or Saturday Superstore kind of idea, isn't it? It's to try and get the kids in. Was it on? It was on during the summer holidays, wasn't it? Yeah,
it was. It was the summer holidays. Yeah. Summer in 1985 in July, and that's one of the things, wasn't it? It was all based around the kids being off school so they could listen to this. Let's have a look and see who's in that chat. Kirsty's saying to us, I was a young whippersnapper in 1985, so was I. Thank you, lady.
We both were, yes. We all were, yes.
Matt's gone one further. I wasn't even born in 1985.
Thank you, Matt, for that. Thank you. Yeah.
And Blue Captain Jack's with us. Hello, Blue Captain Jack. It's lovely to see you. All these kids. TARDIS Travels is with us. Hello, TARDIS Travels. Nice to see you. Oh, and he's always saying to us here, Pirate Radio 4, the ratings were not very good, I had heard. Do you know what, though, TARDIS Travels? That doesn't surprise me, because it was on for ages, and I was only there for the Doctor Who elements. And they really took their time with it, because each episode was on... Well, it wasn't regular, was it? You had to wait for the whole thing because they knew Doctor Who was their big show, and you had to stick with it, didn't you, all the way through these 3 hours on this blooming thing?
Well, I had a problem with it because at the time, trying to get Radio 4 up here in Scotland was quite difficult. So trying to tune it in was quite hard. So I think I managed to get some of it, but I had to wait till the cassette release that came out shortly after this to actually hear it properly. You know, so it's one of those occasions, except for viewers in Scotland, kind of thing for me a little bit.
And it's on the radio.
And on the radio, yeah. So it was difficult. So, but I think it's an interesting experiment, and I think it's an interesting story. It feels like it's foreshadowing the trial of the Time Lord a little bit.
Do you think so?
Well, the Time Lords appear at the end. Spoilers, and also some of the cliffhangers are very much like if this was televised, it'd be a close up of Colin's face going Perry like that. You know? So it's a bit, a bit like that, isn't it? But
well, it's interesting you say that because I have to be honest, Who viewers, when this was on in 1985, I was 15. I didn't really take to it. I was so excited about hearing Doctor Who on the radio because we didn't get Doctor Who on the radio back then. Audio dramas are all about the place now, aren't they? They're everywhere. But this was really the first one. I'm not going to include Exploration Earth, to be honest. I'm not going to include that. This was the first proper sort of Doctor Who drama serial with the cast and a proper story and the music and everything like that. So anyway, we've got this. So I'm quite excited about this, thinking this is going to work. I knew it would work on radio, Paul. I had no doubt about that. And then just didn't take to the actual episodes or the stories because it came across as, a little bit out there for me. I don't know. But having listened to it now for this show, for our review now, at the age I'm at now, I actually quite liked it this time round.
Well, I listened to it when it came out on the season 22 collection set because on there as well. And I quite enjoyed it. But I've not listened to it for a while. I have heard it a few times, but it's got that C-word thing about it that there's a lot in it. There's a lot thrown at it, a bit like we talked about Revelation and also Resurrection. There's lots of stuff in it, and there's a lot of influences. I think there's a huge amount of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Oh yes, I've got that here on my notes. Yeah,
which is interesting. Like the squeaky voice computers, a bit like Trillian. Yeah. And then Barton, the fantastic droid, who's a bit like a robotic butler, is fabulous and lovely, lovely character.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it is. It's interesting as well because just what I was trying to illustrate there as well is that you're saying this was a lead up to the trial. I actually think this could be before Revelation at some point. It's definitely season 22, but the reason I say that is simply because of the relationship between the Doctor and Perry. It's not the combative thing it was at the very beginning, but it is beginning to mellow, and that's why I'm thinking this could get somewhere between Time Lash and Revelation.
It could be, yeah.
What
I thought was interesting at the start of the story, hence my line 3 bottles of Whosic later. It's like Perry and the Doctor being out on a bender on this planet, and the Doctor's got a hangover. I mean, who knew? I know there's reference to in Twin Dilemma about the Doctor and Asriel getting tanked as well and falling into the fountains and the Doctor and his drunken adventures. Yeah, I imagine that was the 4th Doctor, but that's just me. But it's interesting that the Doctor had a hangover. I mean, who's the same? But it might be a kids' show. So this particular one, anyway. And the Doctor's getting drunk with Perry on Whosic, which is not that far from vodka, if you ask me. But
well, it was. I think it's exactly the same. But again, back in the day, first hearing this, I wasn't happy with that, and it didn't actually hit with me this time round. Anyway, it's as though Mr. Sayward has forgotten the show that he's been working on for the last several years. Yeah. The Doctor is not like that. He's not going to do that because you're right. He talks about it, doesn't he? He talks about they've been to Xerox Minor and they've had all this, whatever it is, version of alcohol. Yeah. It's totally out of character.
Yeah. I mean, what were they doing? They're having Whosic, then doing little popping bits of Raxoin. What was going on there?
I don't know what's happening there. It is very, very odd. But yeah, I mean, this is. Again, that's part of the element you mentioned there. It does come across Slipback as being very Hitchhikers, and it's as though Mr. Sayward has it in his head. This is Doctor Who science fiction on the radio, so maybe it's got to be like that because the Hitchhikers phenomenon was huge, at that point as well, wasn't it? And, we're only in 1985. It was absolutely massive. So I think this is his version of a Douglas Adams style script.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, there's some nice characters in it. I think I do like the 2 policemen. One of them played by Ron Pember, who's a lovely character actor, sad no longer with us. He was a very funny character, very Jobsworth in it, which is quite nice, but which I really enjoyed, and of course the fantastic Valentine Dials in it as well, which is a lovely last appearance of him.
He is, yeah. Well, just mention the cast at this point now, because of course we might forget later. But we do have as computer and the inner voice Jane Carr, Shellingbourne Grant is John Glover, Bates and Snatch Nick Revell, the mutant and Stuart Alec Thompson. Seedle is Ron Pember. I quite like Seedle. And then you did mention Slar. Now it's played by Valentine Dow. And yeah, this was his last job, wasn't it?
Yeah, sadly, I think he died 2 weeks after, which was such a shame. Great actor, great voice, great presence. The Man in Black, as he was remembered for before he became the Black Guardian in Doctor Who. Great actor. He makes a lovely appearance in Blackadder, the first series as well.
He does, yeah.
Cameo too.
Yeah, but he'll always be known for. I mean, I have to say, when I heard Valentine Dyal was going into this, I automatically assumed it was going to be the Sixth Doctor and the Black Guardian. Yeah. And we didn't get that at all, did we? We got a completely different character. The captain of the Vipod Moor was Slarn. That's who this is. Slarn. Yeah. What a name that is.
Well, I was going to say, there's an interesting moment where his servant's giving a massage, and there's a really quite horrible ripple of flesh as he's massaging it. So really,
massage my chins.
Yeah, and there's a rattle of flab. It sounds disgusting.
It does sound disgusting. That's the beauty of doing things on radio, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
But it's also the thing that he is quite humorous again in that sort of hitchhikery way, because this character Slarn has the ability to generate and produce deadly toxic diseases that only he isn't immune from. Except on this occasion, of course.
Yeah,
spoilers, by the way.
Yeah. That was 1985 it was on, but you can get many available sources, can't you? There we are.
You can. You can.
But he was quite fun in it. But what I was going to say was that there continued a bit of a trend, though, with Perry, that the one of the main protagonists had a thing for Perry. I mean, she's a beautiful woman, probably, but she's it's kind of like everyone seemed to do that in season 22 with Joe Bell and Shockeye, etc.
Yes,
people
it's a running theme
after Perry. It's a running theme. Yeah. Again, who is this aimed at?
Yeah. Well, but it was a running theme through the whole of 22, wasn't it? They were either arguing in the TARDIS, getting thrown about in the TARDIS, so Perry was getting very unwanted attention out of the TARDIS. And this is not. I mean, that's why this is so 22, season 22. It just happens to be on the radio, but it is one of these things. It's forgotten about all the time, isn't it? Really, and I was delighted to find out that it was going to be included on the limited edition and now the standard edition Blu-ray box sets for season 22 because it fits there absolutely. It was 1985. It's a BBC production. It is actually very, very relatable in that season.
It is, and I think what I'm quite pleased about, it gives Colin a chance to do a bit more of his Doctor as well at that time. I know he does lots now, but at that time we were robbed of Colin as a longer-serving Doctor. Yeah. So any more time with him is always good, and I think he's loving it. He's enjoying it. His performance in this is quite strong, I think, and he seems to be having quite a lot of fun, especially with is it John Glover who plays
John Glover.
Who plays the villain in it? He's the criminal.
Shellingbourne Grant.
Shellingbourne Grant, yeah. So Dr. Grant, as it gets very confusing in the story.
Too many of them.
And Ron Pember doesn't believe who he is until he finds out if he's the Doctor Shellingbourne Grant. He's very, like I said, very Jobsworth, very detailed. But,
definitely. Well, just to mention that we are here talking about, as part of our Sound of Whosic, we're looking at Slipback, the BBC's first official radio drama for Doctor Who back in the summer of 1985. You can see the detail there when it was first broadcast on BBC Radio 4 back in the day, and the excitement that was going on around it. And you have to remember as well, anybody new to this that comes and finds Slipback, you have to remember, of course, that actually it came at an important time. Doctor Who, we'd finished with Revelation of the Daleks. We had been told that it was going on hiatus, it was going on that suspension, and this is what we were getting in the summer. So there was a bit of excitement around it. And then it's just been forgotten since. As Paul mentioned there, you can get it on various things. You can get it on download now. It's all available on download.
I have it, and it's still available on CD.
You can get it on BBC Radio Collection CD.
Yeah.
And if you are collecting as well, you can still get. Now, this is what we call a cassette, kids. And this is where it was piled with Genesis of the Daleks and it's on their Slipback on a cassette as well. You see those?
And you'll need to have with that cassette. You need to have one of these. It's called a pencil.
Yes,
and if it unravels, you just roll it round like that. Okay, in case you get into
trouble. Exactly.
Yeah,
Well, TARDIS Travels is telling us here, the story was recorded on the 10th of June, 1985 in Studio B11 at Broadcasting House. It was indeed. And of course, a certain producer, John Nathan Turner, who was not actually involved with this, apart from being advisory and signing off and saying, yes, go for it, arranged some of the publicity. And the big one that got into the press was this one. This was everywhere for a little while to announce that the Doctor and Perry were going to be on the radio that summer. And again, when I saw these pictures as well, I was just like, oh, okay. Yeah, this is good news. This is okay.
Didn't J&T insist that Eric Saward wrote it as part of the production team? Is that remember that right?
Yes, he did. Yeah, he actually put Eric's name forward. Because, of course, Mr. Saward had been a radio writer already. So if anyone was going to be able to do something and do something very quickly, he reckoned Mr. Saward would be able to do it. So he put his name across to do that. So there we go.
I've been meaning to try and dig out his Richard Mace stories on radio. I've not heard them, and that's where the character started from. That appears in the Visitation. That came from a radio character originally, and was developed from there. And it'd be interesting to try and find access to them at some point.
Yeah, it would be. Blue Captain Jack is saying there was also excitement at the Panopticon that year for Trial, and then we got Trial. Yes, that's true. We were all excited about that, weren't we? We're fans. We're supposed to get excited about all these sort of things, But it was a very difficult time, because I think we were still at that point in the summer of 1985, still thinking actually the BBC aren't in production right now, is when they should have been. So when this thing was on air on Radio 4, they should have been filming the new series. Series 23, and it was hitting us, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, as I said at the start of this show, I was gutted when the show was put on hiatus, or what seemed to be at that point cancelled, and then the BBC backtracked allegedly, and we got season 23. But I think everyone was gutted by the news in the middle of the two Doctors that this was could be the end for the Doctor, so we got this extra bonus. Whether you're a fan of it or not, which is great to have some Doctor Who presence during the summer.
Yeah, and it isn't in a sense a shame that it's, again, like some of the stuff that we talk about on the Sound of Whosic. It's a shame that it's one of these things that has been lost, really, and forgotten about, because it's not that bad when you listen back to it now. Okay, I didn't really like it at 15. I haven't gone back to it that often over the years, but going back for this, it's not too bad. Really, yes, there's things that could be changed, and there's things I don't like about it. It is very funny and stuff. And we were talking in our Revelation review a few days ago about Eric Saward's ability to have dark humor. It's in here as well. I mean, the computer is off her head, isn't she? Really, the computer is very funny, especially the Dizzy Dame version of the computer. And again, you were mentioning. It's a beautiful example of Hitchhikers, but one of the things, it saddens me to report Mr. Wilson and Mr. Bates have just become the intruder's lunch.
In
the context of the that's funny in the show. That you just think, wow, that is so out there. It really is.
When I was listening to today before in preparation for tonight, was I was trying to imagine this if this was filmed rather than just being a radio program, and I'd imagine a mastodon might have been a bit like the magma creature.
I do as well.
Coming down and getting them, Hopefully shot as well as it was shot by Graham Harper. But
yeah. Well, I that's what I imagine it to be like as well. Whatever, you just think, oh, there it is. There's the character, the creature there. It is very fun. But there are other lines that are obviously in storylines as well. As are you in the habit of dropping out of ventilator shafts and all this sort of stuff? Well, yeah, actually. Doctor Who companion.
I don't know whether Eric Saward had watched Genesis or remember the freeze frame of Sarah falling, but Perry falling down the shaft is very, very like Sarah falling from the scaffolding a bit, isn't it? But,
it is funny.
And squashing someone,
Yeah, it is funny. It's very funny. But yeah, I mean, let's talk about our leads here as well. So we've got Colin and Nicola coming back for the show, and yeah, I mean, there is something about this particular relationship. That it really works in these episodes for Slipback. It really, really does, and it's very nice. And it's not actually this is why I think, Paul. This is why it comes across as to me to being towards the end of season 22, and certainly before the Dalek one, because it carries on in a sense where the Dalek one leaves off, if you know what I mean. They've developed this warmness, and it's obviously that the two of them at this point are starting to think, right, when we come back, it has to be something different. Do you see what I mean?
I see what I mean, yeah. And definitely when they came back from Mysterious Planet, the relationship is really warm. It's lovely. And I wish there was more of that in the tenure between Six and Perry. But yeah, you can see that developing with this story, which is really nice, because I think the bickering after a time became a bit wearing, you know what I mean? So I think having a bit more of a decent relationship is much better for the two of them, I think.
Yeah, definitely. It really, really is. Yeah. And it is quite reminiscent of what has actually been going on in season 22. Yeah, we've got that sort of the warmth for each other. You've mentioned the twin dilemma. There's a hark back to that the year before, but there's also this hark back to the fact that, you know, they've been cooking and they've been eating, they've been doing all this sort of stuff. It's quite domestic at this point for them. It's very strange.
What I thought was interesting as well at the start of the story, when we first meet Perry and the Doctor, Perry knocks on the Doctor's bedroom door, which is we've never seen the Doctor's bedroom before, so that's interesting. So he's lying there, recovering from a hangover, which is interesting.
Yeah, and it's beautiful because that's what you can do on the radio. You can bring elements of all these things in, like elements of the TARDIS, and not worry about your budget or anybody. And you, as a listener, you can actually put two and two together yourself. Really, what the Doctor's room looks like. You know what's in there.
There was one line that really stuck out for me though at the very start when Perry's describing the console making funny noises. It's groaning and winking like a dirty old man in a park. I mean, what was that about?
Maybe that was Mr. David's idea of what an American might say.
Possibly, yes.
I don't know. I really don't know on that one, but it is. I mean, the lines are littered through these episodes, aren't they? I'm bearing in mind as well that it must have been quite. From the writer's point of view, they're very short episodes, 6-10 minute episodes to tell this entire story, and maybe that's what was the problem originally for me, because they were scattered through the day, and they were only 10 minutes, and it was quite. It must be quite difficult to build up that.
Was it 2 per program?
I think it was 3, wasn't it?
Was it 3? Because I noticed on listening to it at the end of each 2 episodes, there's a cast list, and I wonder if that's why there's 2 episodes. Then they'd give the cast list at the end of that second episode, because that's
that would have been the final one. Then that would have been the final, because they only did that with the final episode of the day.
Right.
So it must have been that. Yeah, I just
but
remember.
It's weird. I mean, we're just recovering from 45 minutes in season 22, and these are very short 10-minute episodes. It is quite jarring a little bit.
Well, it is, and also because it seemed a very complicated story at the time.
Yeah.
Because this was the first time a lot of us had heard Doctor Who in this sort of format on the radio. You have to adapt to that as well, and the story's all over the shop. And it's I know it's the same characters and what have you, but there's a lot going on isn't there?
Yeah. Well, there's all the time paradox stuff as well about the Big Bang. So there's all that kind of like Castrovalva, Terminusy kind of connections as well. Again, yeah. So. And we've already had it not that long ago.
Well, I've got it here. How many universe origin stories can Doctor Who provide us with now? Because this was number 4.
I think so. Yeah.
So we had. Let's have a look. What did we have? We had the Terminus was the big one, and which it rewrites Terminus completely there, wasn't it? So that's very bizarre. What else did we have at the time? I can't remember now off the hand.
Does Logopolis count as a reworking of the universe in the same way as sort of Big Bang was? Kind of idea, but.
Possibly. There is another one which I can't remember, but anyway, it was really just a case of again, and the computer controls it, and you did that a couple of years ago in Terminus, and sometimes I think, Paul, because it was the first radio for all of us, really, and if you were listening to this over the days of Pirate Radio 4 and going through that entire show, waiting for the next Doctor Who episode. Would it have been more simple just to do something which was like with the Daleks or something like that? Something that was straightforward action adventure where we all knew where we stood.
That would be lovely to have Daleks on the radio. They're on audio all the time now, but that's another story. But I don't know whether they didn't do that because they just had the Daleks on in Revelation just in the spring, So maybe that was why. But or maybe they couldn't get the rights to be on the radio. Who knows?
I just don't think they would have bothered. And again, because it was Mr. Sayward, they would have been saying something. He would have said, I've got to do my own thing here. I mean, because we didn't go back, you know, they didn't do that, did they? They were just like, okay, all right, let's get that sorted. The Jamie, 9526, hello to you. Guns ruined the line of his coat. Yeah, that's what he used to say, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Listening to the cassette of this in stereo, glorious stereo, years ago was fun. A bit Adam style, and it clashes with Terminus, but probably one of the best of Styx's era, to be honest. It's interesting you say that, the Jamie, because when I was listening to this for this review here on the show, yes, I got that thinking this is actually quite a strong set of, or strong story, considering we know now that Sayward wasn't keen on the Sixth Doctor at all, you know, because in the novel, for example, not that we want to talk about the novel that much, but in the novel, the Sixth Doctor doesn't come into it until way over halfway through the book. It's I've not
read the novel, but I was going to say that wouldn't have surprised me in this recording if he was kind of shortchanged like he was in Revelation, allegedly, and didn't appear until later on. But it's interesting if he doesn't appear late on in the book, because you know it's happened before. You know.
Yeah. So I mean that was the novelization for. But here actually we're quite lucky because we get the Doctor after the main title theme at the beginning, really, and then he's into the action. But that's where it starts to get confusing, because how does this computer get into his head and all this, and then you've got to start working that out. But actually, the Jamie, I quite enjoyed it this time around. I have to say, I thought, oh, actually, maybe I've misjudged it over the years.
Well, I think Colin works great on audio, and he's done
he's brilliant.
Audio sense. He's really good on it. So I think he's a good radio performer, and that makes a difference to it. I think he really gives it gusto. I think, but he's really enjoying it, and I think you'd imagine he's not showing how he might have felt at the time with the hiatus. You know, he's a real professional. He's doing a great job and enjoying himself doing Slipback.
Yeah, the brilliant thing is as well, though, of course, that they're pros, aren't they? They have to get on with this. This is show business. Your show can be axed at any time. It can be put on hiatus any time. You can be replaced at any time. That's their business that they're in, isn't it? And they know that as well, don't they? Really. But there's so much going on at this point with this as well. But yeah, I mean, it's the strength of Slipback really for myself that actually, obviously, it generates the Pertwee ones that were to come several years later. The Ghosts of End Space and Paradise of Death. And then on the back of those, then you get all the audios, I would argue as well, from Big Finish eventually. Yeah. But Colin is the standout on this as well. Colin is definitely in his stride as the Doctor in these episodes. And as you say, he's loving it. But his Doctor just screams. You can picture him in the ship, talking to the computer with Perry. Getting frustrated with the people around him, you know, it's just a wonderful, wonderful performance.
Well, there's some lovely bits, like I said, with Barton, the butler robot, and it's malfunctioning, and he gives it a big kick to try and bring it round and stuff. It's very Sixth Doctor, very funny, and visually that would have been great, you know. And the idea of this kind of Marvin-esque character and the robot's quite nice as well, you know.
Yeah. Again, that's what I thought. In fact, when I listen to Slipback, I see the BBC's interpretation of Marvin from the classic TV show.
Yeah,
I see that silver frame. Yeah, do you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely, yeah. Because even the sort of manic depressive tone that Marvin has comes out in the way that the actor's playing it. It's Barton. He is slightly down. I suppose he's a bit confused as well because he's been knocked about a bit, so he's a bit disorientated. Which is a lovely performance by the actor who's playing the robot. It's good. Yeah.
Yeah. Nicola Bryant as well is brilliant in this, isn't she? She's really good. I mean, Perry is slightly different here. She seems to be, to me, more confident, which again ties in with my belief. This could be after Time Lash and before Revelation. He says, getting all fanny.
That's why we're here. But yes, it's interesting. I think she's definitely more feisty and a bit more confident than she was, and like you say, maybe the gelling of the relationship and warming up a bit's maybe helped that and it's made her more confident because they're still traveling together, which is good.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your comment. Thank you for watching as you're watching Who's Views, the sound of Whosic for this particular episode. This is where we look at Doctor Who for the ears, whether it be the soundtracks or whether it be something like today, the radio dramas. Yes, that's what we're up to here. So we're talking about 1985 Slipback. If you've only just found us, thank you very much. Please don't forget to like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. Blue Captain Jack is saying here, Colin is brilliant on audio. He and McGann always steal on Big Finish performances. They always from day one, Colin really got that with the audio. And again, Slipback. It's hard to say, isn't it, Blue Captain Jack? To anybody that wasn't around in 1985, what a big deal Slipback was actually, and how Colin actually managed to get those of us that were younger in those days into radio.
Yeah,
in a big way, because he made it work. This was the Doctor. It was brilliant.
Well, with this, and we've talked many times about the Pescatons, that kind of, and Genesis on vinyl, that all built up to this, so it really was, for us as fans of the kind of mid-70s or the 80s, it was a great time to get into that kind of thing. And for me, like you're saying, it got me into radio, and I enjoy radio drama of any sort, and it's nice to get a taste from Doctor Who.
Yeah. And as I say, Slipback must have been some sort of success. Maybe it was a commercial success. I don't know. You have to remember as well, the time of day it was put out, a lot of the older fans would have been working. And back then, you had to try and record it somehow, because I think they did repeat it eventually, but they weren't going to repeat it, or you weren't going to get it on the internet, because we didn't have the internet in 1985. So when that came out, you had to wait for this version of Genesis of the Daleks and Slipback, as part of the BBC Radio collection. Look at that. Look at that, everybody.
Lovely. Yes, I used to have that. Not anymore, but I used to have it.
Yeah.
But, can you remember when that came out off the top of your head? Can you?
Well,
does it say in the box?
It says 1988 here.
Oh, right. Is it as late as that? Right. Okay.
It was pretty late, because the radio collection was around quite a while, and then these started to come out. That's when audiobooks, as we call these things now, really started to take off, was the late 80s.
Because then they did Power of the Daleks and Evil of the Daleks and Food from the Deep and all that kind of range, didn't they, at the same sort of time? Yeah.
And a lot of them went out for the what would have been the 30th as well. Do you remember they built it up that way? They're all over there on the shelf. It was brilliant. Yeah. So that's what we got here as well. Oh, the Jamie 1995-26 is saying it's very in keeping with how Doctor Who magazine was doing the Sixth Doctor in the comics. For example, Voyager. Woo, that's a good point, isn't it? Because the Doctor Who magazine, or Doctor Who Monthly as it was then as well, Doctor Who Monthly magazine, their comic strips for the Sixth Doctor were epic. They were huge, fantastical, amazing stories. Yeah, so I suppose Slipback would fit into that a little bit.
Yeah. It makes it like a big universe, doesn't it? It's a big place, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm surprised they haven't been put onto audio yet. I suppose it's only a matter of time. I would love to hear Colin in those.
Well, that'd be interesting, because they have already done some. They did the Star Beast and the Iron Legion and all that kind of stuff already, which some have done better than others, but it's a personal thing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely personal thing. It really is. It really is. Yeah. So this is again, listening to all this. I mean, you've got all these amazing characters coming through. You can actually feel that this is quite. I'm going to use the words gritty, Paul. This is quite a gritty, even though it's very condensed and it's very short. Listening to it as we can do now, episode, and you don't have that annoying wait of an hour and a half or 2 hours or something. You can just go from episode to episode to episode. It fits together beautifully, and I think that's what made it jarring for me as a 15-year-old on the original broadcast, and what's put me off, because you had to wait an hour and a half or 2 hours, whatever it was, for those other things. And you know what? This is the only thing I remember. Who views? This is the only thing I remember about Pirate Radio 4 was Doctor Who. I don't remember the rest of it. I remember Bruno Books and I remember Gaz, whatever his name was. And I don't remember any of their other shows because I went off and did something less boring instead. And you always had to have the radio on though.
Yeah.
Because they would just pop it on, weren't they? Because as I say, they knew it was their big thing to keep people listening.
Well, like I said, I mean, I can only remember the image you put up of Radio Times. I remember that vividly.
Shall I show you it again? I'll pop it up again for you. There we go.
And can you see what else is in it there? Does it give any indication of what else is on? It doesn't really tell you, does it?
Adrian Mole. There was an Adrian Mole drama, I believe, in that one as well.
Right. Okay.
Miriam Margolis is there as well. Griff Rhys-Jones reads something. Post. I don't know what that is actually. Something else there. See, these are things you just don't remember all this, do you?
Yeah. Well, that's just typical being a fan. It's just Doctor Who. That's all I'm interested in. That's my.
That's all we care about.
That's all we care about. Yeah, exactly.
That's all of it. But yeah, it must be quite. It must be quite successful for them because, as I say, it suddenly registered the fact. Well, Doctor Who works on radio, and people will like it, and the fans will come and watch it.
I know we didn't get another Doctor Who radio straight after that, but I wondered if if Pirate Radio 4 came back the following year with some other drama instead.
I actually seem to recall in my head that it did.
Right.
And Doctor Who, of course, wasn't in the mix.
Yeah.
And I didn't bother with it. And then you never hear of it again. But I think they did do a sequel to it under some format. I don't know. Kirsty's saying, look, Kirsty's saying to us, radio sucks nowadays. It does.
Yeah, it does.
Some of it does.
Yeah. But yeah, I was going to say it's interesting. I wonder what other programs they had. I wonder if they considered putting Doctor Who on again.
Yeah.
Or because it was coming back on the TV, J&T wasn't that keen to have the two things going at the same time. Who knows? But
probably. It was probably. Well, also your leads would have been busy working on the series because by the time it was coming back the year after, they were doing the series, weren't they? They were back in front of the cameras, as it were. So they've got that. I want to talk briefly about the soundtrack to this as well because it's very, very Doctor Who, isn't it? Obviously, it's done by the usual crew, but it doesn't take away from the story in this, and that's quite clever in radio, isn't it?
I mean, I think some of the atmosphere music's really nice. Who did the music again? What was it? Peter Howell.
It was Peter Howell, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. It's got a very mixture of Peter Howell, Roger Lim type feel to it a little bit. I think maybe it's because I watched Revelation just recently and I can hear kind of both elements of it. You know, kind of little sort of themes that they use are very similar. But it's really good for atmosphere and quite dramatic. Some of the cliffhangers, although they're a bit OTT, work really well. I think the when the Doctor shouts Perry, although I was kind of joking about the zoom to Colin's face like Trial of a Time Lord, it's quite punchy. It really kind of leaves you hanging and it works like a proper cliffhanger because you want to know what's going to happen next.
Yeah. I've just looked it up for you. Slipback was released on the 7th of November 1988 on a double audio cassette along with the 1978 LP version of Genesis of the Daleks, and it was subsequently released as a standalone CD on the 8th of January 2001.
Right.
So that's 1988. Goodness me.
And
so 3 years later.
This is 2001.
That's 2001. Yeah. So I mean, yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's. I'm going to call this now again as part of Sound of Whosic. I'm going to call this one of those things that it's a wee lost gem as part of the whole thing. You know, about the whole Doctor story, about that whole time, the whole Sixth Doctor. We don't celebrate it enough. We don't think about it enough, and we certainly don't have it on the shelves enough. Really, if you know what I mean.
I think it's true. I think these little curiosities are nice to find. If you're a new fan and you want to find other avenues to look into, like these or the Cushion movies or that kind of thing, you know, it's worth just having a wee look because you'll be pleasantly surprised by some of the little gems you can find through the history of the show. Yeah.
And like Revelation says to Jamie 9526, everyone dies in the end. Saywood was a cheery fellow. He was indeed.
He was indeed.
He was indeed. And he hasn't changed much. I mean, this is a harmless bit of story. But I think, you know, yes, it's a harmless story. It's good for the Doctor and Perry because it shows a change in their relationship, which is then built on for when it does come back in 1986. So obviously the talks were happening at that point to say, we're sick of this. We're sick of all this argument that the two of us are doing. He would just drop her off any point, wouldn't he, at this point? So we've got all that going on there. It's very 1985 season. You can slot that into the season beautifully. That's something there. But it is important because I wonder if they hadn't done Slipback, if we would have had any Doctor Who radio drama like that at all.
Possibly not. I think that probably started the ball rolling, definitely. I know that when John Pertwee did Paradise of Death and Ghost of Endspace, he was doing other audios, but was it I've forgotten the name of the producer that did Batman and Superman and the Marx Brothers and all that kind of stuff.
That's right. Yes.
Was it Dick Maggs? Was it Dick Maggs? I can't remember.
It might have been. I can't remember.
Yeah. And I think John got that going, but I think that was because it was the 30th anniversary that came about, wasn't it? I think. It wasn't until it was the first, and then it was 96. Wasn't it?
Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. Yes, yeah. I was close.
Well, I'm 2 Gs. Yeah, I mean, it's so long ago. But that's something we'll look at when we come to start talking about the Paradise of Death. But it's the fact is that Slipback, it must have been some sort of success for them because they knew there would be the audience there because fans would come to it. And certainly that thing must have sold. You know, the cassettes and what have you must have sold.
Yeah.
So that they carried on with that. So I don't know. I don't know. I enjoyed it this time around. Listening to it now after all these years and revisiting it for this edition of Sound of Whosic, I enjoyed it. I liked it.
I enjoyed it too, and I'm glad you've been converted to it, because I've listened to it a few times since its original broadcast and been quite fond of it, because I really like Doctor Who audio drama, and it was a nice little novelty, like I said, to have that little nugget of something between 22 and 23 when we missed out the original season 23. It was a nice thing to have as a fan to keep you going,
Yeah, absolutely. And that, again, that's the importance of that time. So listen, I'm going to see how much you liked it now, because we're going to do this. Yeah, we don't usually get to do this on the Sound of Whosic, because it's usually some sort of soundtrack or something we're listening to. But this one's a story, so we can do this. Scores on the TARDIS doors, for those of you that are new of us, is where we give the episode, the story, a mark out of 10. So, Paul, what are you going to give out of 10 for Slipback?
Well, as I said earlier, I think it's lovely to have more of Colin and Nicola, because we were starved of the original season 23. So having that little nugget to come along, and I did enjoy it. I think it's not perfect by any stretch of imagination, but it's entertaining.
Yeah,
I'm going to give it 7 out of 10.
Oh, excellent! Not bad at all. As I say, I enjoyed it probably for the first time listening to it for this show, because I just didn't get it before, and that again shows you what a beautiful thing age is. Because it certainly wasn't what I wanted when I first heard it when I was 15 in 1985, and then the couple of times I've revisited it wasn't what I wanted then. But this one, listened to all 6 episodes, got it done, quite enjoyed it, appreciated the humor this time round as well.
Yeah,
that landed with me this time. I've got it. As you say, though, it's not perfect in any way, shape, or form, but it's also, it's just important, because it fills that gap, as you were saying. It gave us something in summer 1985, because we didn't know what was really going on, and I don't think, unless you were there, nobody can ever understand what that was like. It was really quite the first time ever Doctor Who wasn't coming back.
Yeah.
And as fans, we were all sweating and sort of worried, weren't we?
And crying and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And that attitude has actually stayed with us to this very day.
Yeah.
Is it going to come back?
That's why we get twitchy about ratings, because it's.
Well, it's true, isn't it? Because it was drilled into us in 1985.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10. But I did enjoy it, and it's much better than that blooming book, which I still can't ever.
It's quite pacey, isn't it? It's got quite a good pace to it. When you listen to them all together, it goes quite quickly, I think. Yeah,
I think that's what I think. As I said, that's the benefit of now being able to listen to it all in one. It's only an hour, and you can listen to it now, and it's bang, 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 bang. Whereas we had to wait ages for the next bit, and that I think that's the other reason I didn't like it when it first came out, because it's just like, there's part 1. And then 2 hours or 2.5 hours later, there's part 2, and then you had to come back for the next. No. But let's have a look and see who's saying what in the chat. Oh, TARDIS Travels has given it 6.5 out of 10. That's not bad at all, is it? It's not bad. He's also saying, from memory, I was 15 too, JT. Yay! It helped to bridge the gap. So yeah, 6.5 out of 10 for that one. Not bad at all. Thank you. And the Jamie 9526 is saying 10 out of 10. Only thing Eric ever wrote that I can say I actually liked, but then I was probably younger than 10 when I heard it, so nostalgia kicks in. The cassette is downstairs. It's on my Audible library. I don't think there's anything wrong with the nostalgia kicking in. Absolutely not.
Not at all. No.
He's also saying to us here, it's a bit of a precursor to the NAs and all those split personality AIs. Actually, good point, because that computer being 2 personalities was a little bit ahead of its time at the time, because we didn't even blooming well really have computers in 1985. Let's face it. So all that was fantastical to think. Everything that we're playing with today. Didn't see any of that coming.
No,
it's pretty amazing.
Things to come. Yeah,
and split personalities on computers on the way. Well, listen, Paul, thanks very much for joining me for this. This is, as I say, part of our Sound of Whosic series, where we get to look at the soundtracks and some of the radio dramas. At some point, we will also be returning to look at the Pertwee stories that followed Slipback. But I think from us, I'd recommend this to anybody new to Doctor Who. Wouldn't you, Paul?
I would, yeah. Give it a listen. You might enjoy it.
Yeah. And it's only an hour. It's only an hour, really. But I would recommend go and listen to it, but listen to it as the one. Don't do what we had to do, which is wait for hours before you get to episode 2 or episode 3 or whatever. But no, it's good, isn't it? It's go and listen to it. And Colin and Nicola are brilliant in it, so go and enjoy it.
They are very, very good in it. Yeah.
Oh, well, that was fun. Thank you for that, Paul. Nice to see you. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for coming to join us on our review of Slipback as part of the Sound of Whosic here on Who's Views. Don't forget to please like the video. And also, yes, please do subscribe to the channel. We will be back very soon with some of our other content. So keep in touch. Ring that bell so you know when we're going live and when you get notifications of every we've got coming up. We've got some great episodes coming up. And of course, we'll be back very soon also with headlines. So from Paul and myself, thank you for joining us. We'll see you again very soon. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.